quorum, so I suggest we go ahead and officially start. Starting with announcements and open session and public comments. Are there any announcements or open session? I see we have what looks to be 2 or 3 members of the public, David and Jean. Is there anything you want to start with on public announcements?
Hello. No, just want to listen in.
Okay.
Good to see everybody.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative with roll call. So we have myself, Chris, we have Joe, Skip, Kevin, we have Janet and Will, and I do expect Alfred will join us, so I'll just keep an eye out for that. Next order of business would be the approval of the minutes of meeting from our last meeting, which was March 15th. So if you would take a few minutes if you need just to refresh your memory, and then we can entertain a motion to accept. Skip, this is your strong suit.
I didn't find any issues.
To the point where you would like to make a motion?
I make a motion that the March 15th, 2021 minutes of the Wellfleet Dredging Task Force Committee be accepted as written.
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We'll go ahead and vote either aye or nay, starting with Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris, aye. So it carries 4-0. Next item of business would be an update on the status of the contract for the lobbyist. Joe, if you could update us.
Sure. Just to recap a bit, the town administrator had me write the RFP and send it out to 5 lobbying firms. The closing date was on the 23rd. And from those 5, we received 2 responses. One was identical to the original one from our prior lobbyist, and that is $25,000 for the year. The second response was from a lobbyist who was going to charge $10,000 a month or $120,000 for the year. At the request of the TA, this is going to go before the select board on April 13th for their approval. And I don't anticipate any issues with it because they already approved it back in January when I presented the need for it and the details.
Here, and yet this is obviously not the best.
Somebody's soundtrack is on, I think.
Oh, mine is, sorry.
Okay.
How'd I do that? I didn't think I did that.
You went back.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, anything else on the lobbyist? Any questions from anyone?
I just have a comment. I met Joe, an individual living in Wellfleet who happens to be a retired National Fisheries Services employee. He was up in the ranks, didn't make captain, but he said that going the route of the lobbyist, and this I think is a backup of what you've done for us, to say that that's the best way to go with the NOAA organization because it's highly political at the higher levels. particularly the levels that have to be approved by members of Congress.
Well, that's good to hear, Skip.
Yeah, and he's a Wellfleet resident.
Okay, next item on the agenda is an update on the permit activity, which pretty well goes in tandem with the activities of the lobbyists, unless there's something else, Joe. Pretty much waiting on the lobbyists for that one.
Yeah, well, we got the grant submitted, all 170 pages of it. And
That's coming up. That's coming up next on the agenda, if you don't mind.
yeah, okay, I'm connecting it to Representative Pete.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Senator here. So I've been having ongoing contact with Sarah Peak and Julian Shear. And when the grant was submitted, they requested that I compose a letter of support that would be from them, one letter signed by both of them. I did that, sent it to them, and that letter went out to the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, which is the agency that is going to award the grant. I've also had ongoing conversations with staff people at Senator Markey's office and Congressman Keating's office regarding the permit for Area 2 that the Army Corps is refusing to issue at this point in time. They both confirmed what our lobbyist reported to us, that soon President Biden will be making appointments for the Assistant Secretary of the Army, who oversees the Army Corps of Engineers, and the New England head of the Army Corps of Engineers. Senator Markey in particular will play a key role in that because he chairs the subcommittee that has to approve that appointment. That worked well for us last time when we secured the funding for the channel, and there's optimism that that will work again well for us this time. So we will continue that work in that area. Congressman Keating is going to be talking directly to National Marine Fisheries and the Army Corps. He already has a well-established relationship with the Army Corps going back several years on the issue of replacing the bridges. So that's a report on that front, and I feel pretty good about the results of it.
Okay, any questions for Joe? All right, next item used to be the RFPs, but since the work is progressing, I changed the agenda item to be engineering updates. And unfortunately, we were supposed to have an engineering call with GEI last week. Excuse me, Dan Robbins had to cancel on short notice. I'm not sure why. I'm a little concerned it may be some type of personal emergency.
It's not.
No.
I was the reason he canceled that meeting.
Oh, okay. All right.
I do not believe that marina infrastructure should be involved in a meeting with an engineer without myself present. So that meeting was canceled by me.
Okay, it would have been helpful to tell us you had canceled it, but
Dan Robbins canceled it after I asked him and requested that he do that.
okay. Do you envision rescheduling a meeting?
I might, the Harbor Master Department might, whereas this is marina infrastructure. We will take it under advisement and we will look into that.
Well, what part of the meeting would relate to marina infrastructure?
The pilings, Joe, just like in the minutes that you just presented, where pilings were marina infrastructure.
Uh-huh,
That would fall under my department and the town specifically,
right.
which was the meeting. as Dan
No,
Robbins.
the
Yeah.
agenda of the meeting was much more extensive than that. Pilings were just one part of that.
Well,
Which-
I'm
which
sorry,
are-
Joe, but that
If you
does
let me
not
finish, if you let
go
me
without
finish.
me.
Pilings were just one part of that, and you're certainly most welcome to, be involved in that. But the heart of the meeting is on securing permits and the technical part of the actual dredging. So pilings were just one part of it, and by all means, sit in on it.
Well, Joe, I can't sit in on it if I'm not told, nor is the rest of this committee. It's hard to sit in on a meeting when you and the committee are not told about meetings. By the members present in that meeting.
Yeah, every member of the committee, as well as yourself, Nancy, anyone else is welcome to sit in on those meetings.
Again, they have not been published or brought to this meeting. The time schedules and the invitations have not been broadcasted to this group or myself.
Well,
And
that's
Joe,
because
please let me finish. I am speaking right now. Do not interrupt me. Again, this engineering of the pilings falls under my department. This is the harbor master. This is marine infrastructure. Going about holding meetings in secret, not even telling this group, this task force about these meetings is inappropriate and unethical.
The meetings have been regularly
This is
recurring.
what this meeting was.
Yeah, well, the meetings have been regular and recurring, and you have attended some of them. Maybe they're not broadcast each and every week, but they have been consistent on Wednesday mornings. They had been Mondays. So going forward, you're going to take over the piling?
That is under the purview of our department.
Okay.
the issue of the pilings is a bit more complicated than that, because it is very much involved with the dredging project. So the pilings are one part of the dredging project of Area 1. Some time ago, the dredging task force directed Chris and myself as co-chairs to have the bi-weekly meetings. Everybody who attended the task force has been aware that those meetings are every other Wednesday. So there's been no secret there. And anybody in the task force or who's attending can attend the meeting that the task force delegated Chris and I to work them, and at each meeting to report back about those meetings. But the issue of the pilings is very much intertwined with the Area 1 dredging project in one part of it. And again, you're more than welcome.
Joe, everything is intertwined with the dredging. This is the marina. These are the waterways of Wellfleet, which all fall legally under the purview of the harbor master.
Tell you what I would recommend is that we have a follow-on discussion, and I would recommend in person but socially distanced, maybe down certainly at the harbor at the grandstand, so that we can allocate, because there is a lot of intertwined activities. So I would think that it would behoove us, as we go through, we clarify who's going to do what, under whose purview should it fall, does it fall, and that will guide us as to who's going to do what.
Now, the purchase of the pilings and the engineering plans for them, we are going to submit a grant to the Seaport Economic Council, hopefully to pay for a good part of those. We're under a very strict time frame. That grant is due May 1st. So my suggestion is, as soon as possible, for Chris, Will, and I to meet with the engineer so we can move that whole area forward, given the calendar and the time limitations we're working under. Is that agreeable to you, Will?
No, it's not.
Okay, and why is that?
I will comment on that later, Joe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so at this point, though, to use our resources, anything to do with piling, Will, you're going to follow up on, be it the engineering design, the grant, anything like that?
Yes,
And until further notice, or if there's anything we can do to assist, you'll let us know. But right now, you're going to go ahead and be the point man on it.
yeah, Alfred and I have been working on them, that's for sure. So we'll continue to do so.
Okay.
Will, can other people on the task force join in with you when you and
I'd be more
Alfred
than
are
happy to
covering
have
it?
you join in with me.
Okay. So you'll let me know and send me an email?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Will, you can include me on that email too, if you wish.
Certainly.
Oh, you're at Boston College Eagle.
I'm going with Wellfleet Charters this week.
What happened to the Eagles?
My wife is washing it.
So can I suggest that at all dredging meetings, and I would throw in the piling meetings, that as a committee, even if it doesn't affect one particular committee member or two, like myself even, we should just all be informed about what's going on all the time. And it's just not that hard to CC everybody. And this way we're all aware of what's going on and what might need to be done.
Well, as I stated earlier, we're on a schedule. Everybody,
I'm not saying, I'm just saying to carbon copy everybody, just do a double copy about what's going on.
okay. Well, we have announced at the meetings that we have every other Wednesday meetings with the engineer. That's on the calendar for everybody. So anybody who wants to jump into that is more than welcome to attend.
That's not.
Okay, so that's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that as the Wellfleet Dredging Committee and who works closely with the Wellfleet Harbor and in the other committee, you don't have to be invited. I wouldn't attend the meetings. I'm very busy and all that stuff. But just to inform people, like if I run into somebody at the harbor in town and they ask me what's happening with the contract, you can say, well, they're meeting. I could have said they're meeting every other Wednesday. It's just as committees, it is important to just keep the committees informed of meetings or whatever. You know, it's just polite to say this is what's happening. So that's really, I'm hearing quite a disagreement here, and it's just that's what you do, is you just tell people what's going on. They don't have to attend.
I
What?
second that recommendation.
Who is that? Will? Yeah. Not Will. Skip. You know, it's just what you do, you know. So let's bring it up to date.
Okay, move on to funding grants, and the one for the Massachusetts Dredging Program was submitted by GEI on March 16th. It was due on the 17th, so they did submit it the day before, and got confirmation back that it was received by EOHED. The next two grants would be SEC grants. One of them would be, or could be, to capture the dredging design costs. That's a new category this year. And the application I mentioned last call, I believe, is virtually identical to the one we just did, although a little bit shorter. And then the other one would be for infrastructure, which is what we just talked about. So Will is going to take that over as an SEC grant, presumably. Question from our last call. In fact, Will, I think you raised it. You know, there's a 20% match for SEC grants, and I think you raised a question: could in-kind labor count to the 20%? And for the SEC grant, it can. So you'd want to be keeping track of anything like that. The non 20% cost cannot be incurred until a grant is awarded. But the 20% town match can be incurred prior to the award. So just a little bit of timeline for bookkeeping. Anything else on grants? Piling replacement. I think we've covered that. Next item is to review the action item list. And again, as usual, the really pertinent items have been covered in the agenda unless someone sees something else that's on the action list or would like to add something to the action item list.
Okay, I have an item, excuse me, that we need your help on. You had sent out an email to all the members of the dredging task force, whereby you directed the engineer not to furthermore schedule any appointments, any meetings with the dredging task force. You talked about GEI Engineering is contracted with the town of Wellfleet through the Harbor Master's office, and as such, the Harbor Master needs to make sure the dispensation of information is more clear and concise with the town and its committees. The Harbor Master's office is also responsible to report and track all costs. My first thought is the email you sent directing the engineer not to do that was not from the town of Wellfleet, it was from you. You directed the engineer to stop scheduling our meetings. And I'm here to suggest to you that the Harbor Master under Chapter 90 and per our charge doesn't have the authority to do that. That per our charge, the dredging task force for quite a while now has been having discussions with the engineers. GEI is not contracted through the Harbor Master's office. All contracts are approved by the select board and emanate from the TA. We have public meetings. Everybody can say what they want. Meetings are videotaped. You talked about the need to make sure the dispensation of information is more clear and concise, and that your office is responsible to report and track all costs as a direct result of any actions taken. Well, the dredging task force doesn't have any cost. We make recommendations to the select board for funding. Those recommendations go to the select board. They review and approve them. No actual dredging costs go through the Harbor Master's budget or office per the charge. The select board has issued the charge for the task force to be managers of all aspects of dredging. Scheduling and working with the engineer is a large part of managing that project. Anybody can jump in. You are a valued contributor like Nancy, but you really don't have the authority to dictate to the task force how our job should be managed. Now, a while back, Will, you called me and you expressed to me that the task force was not taking your input seriously. Please share with us, you know, you've always attended and you've always spoken out, and everybody values your input. Please share with us why you feel that the task force is not taking you seriously.
Joe, what was the date of that conversation?
It was in last May.
Last May.
Yeah.
Do you have that recorded? Because I don't remember that at all.
You called me at home, Will.
Oh, I called you in May.
Yes.
Yeah, I doubt that. I seriously doubt that.
Well, I'm not making it up.
Actually, and would you like to read the letter that you actually wrote to me in response to that?
Oh, I don't have to because everybody received it,
Well,
where I outlined a position.
yeah, but the public hasn't.
Well, the public has access to it if they want. I don't
Okay.
care.
So you don't want to read that out
Well,
loud right now?
you addressed your email, only to task force members. And I responded, as you did, to you and task force members.
Mhm. That's correct. And you just read it out loud. Would you like to read your response out loud?
I don't think the members want to hear my response when they have it in writing in front of them. I just said it was emailed to all of them.
And again, I did not talk about the members. I said for the general public.
Well, these are open meetings. Per the open meeting law, anybody can attend.
Yes. And was that why you would like to read your rebuttal to what I said?
No, because your email wasn't to the public, it was to the task force. And I responded to you and the task force.
Mm-hmm. And would you like to read that out loud?
No, that
Do
was.
you
a
not want the
request.
public to know your response?
You know, if somebody in the public wants to get a copy of my email, even though that email is privileged to you and members of the task force, I'll give it to them.
It's not privileged, Joe.
Yes, it is.
It's not privileged at all.
Yeah, by law,
Oh, it's public information, Joe.
emails are privileged.
No, they are public information.
Well, what
Joe,
do you have to say, Will?
You are a licensed social worker, correct? You
Will,
were.
what do you have to say?
Can you answer my question, Joe?
I have several degrees. That's one of them.
Okay, I said a license, but whichever you prefer.
I worked in
please stop the
administration.
bullying,
I
Joe.
worked in administration and management in state government for 30 years.
All right, good. Please stop the bullying. You know what that is. You're a licensed social worker. I find you extremely abusive and bullying. Please stop.
Why is that? Please tell the committee why.
Please stop bullying me, Joe.
Please tell the task force why.
Joe, I feel I'm being bullied by you right now.
Look, you're making a statement, an accusation. Please articulate your position.
Joe, please stop bullying me.
This item on the agenda as a general discussion, and
So you guys have to work this.
I think
you
it
guys
needs
have-
future. I think it needs future discussion, and again, I would reiterate my recommendation that maybe sit down in person and go through what the issues are. I really think we can solve them better that way.
Can I ask a question? We're all supposed to be working together here, and I can't attend a lot of the powwows that you guys have with the engineers because I'm not available at 10 o'clock in the morning because I'm still teaching. But I gotta be honest with you, this is just my humble opinion. Will should be there. I mean, Joe, you can say that all this dredging is not part of, nothing to do with Will because we go through the select board, but it's all like his turf. I mean, it all circles around the harbor. So in my very modest opinion, I think he should be a main player in the whole thing because we're dealing with his backyard here.
Kevin, my response to that is several-fold. One, if you think the charge to this task force with all of us as managers should be changed, I suggest you petition the select board to have it changed, okay? But the more important thing is that the scope of this is broad. It is not limited to just the harbor master's domain. Let me elaborate, okay? There's a tremendous amount of time and work with many federal and state agencies. They're talking about, the economy of the town. They're talking about business, employment opportunities with dredging, its effects on tourism. Those have to be composed and written longhand for the grant. Work has to go into them, okay? Those, it's not broad, it's broad. It's not limited to piles just in the harbor. It's much broader.
I totally understand what you're saying, totally understand. But that is the harbor in its effect on all of those. Tourism, the shellfish industry, the recreational boating industry, they're all boats. They all have to do with the water. And you have expertise in the areas of what you do, and you do a great job at it. And Will has expertise in the management of the harbor. I just think instead of just working as one coherent group, that's all.
Well, thank you.
I see no problem with that.
Thank you for your input. I think we have been working as a coherent group, and I'm going to go back and reiterate and say that we value Will's input. He's always spoken up at meetings on issues that he is concerned about and wants, and there's never been any exclusion of anybody. So it's wide open. You work at 10 in the morning, I understand that. If anybody is not working at that time and they want to jump in, it's wide open.
Right, but what we're going to do going forward, as I understand it, is we're going to communicate any particular meeting that's necessary for all the task force to know about, whether or not they can schedule to be there at that time.
Okay, Skip, right
Yeah.
now, when you leave the meeting, we will announce it at every meeting. But right now, when you leave the meeting, go to your calendar, and every other Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you can write down the meeting with the engineers. And Chris and I will announce it at each meeting.
Well, right now, we don't have any schedule because they've been canceled.
No, we don't.
But going forward, I think rather than emphasize that no one is excluded, it's easy enough to have specific inclusion and calendar invites. Yeah, if we say everyone's included, then there's no reason not to facilitate it by providing more specific information, calendar reminders. No problem with that. But right now, I don't think we have any scheduled. We'll need to circle back on that, at least for the dredging meetings.
I just want to, say a final thought. Per the charge of this task force, we are managers. We have to have complete access all the time to the dredging engineer. And nobody has the authority to block our access. And right now our access is being blocked. So that has to be addressed.
Actually, Joe, nobody blocked your access. No one said you couldn't make a meeting. No one said you couldn't hold it. It actually, what it said was that it has to be scheduled through my office.
Well, we have always scheduled it, through the dredging task force. So my suggestion is we do it together.
Yeah, so
And
you
you'll
guys have
reduce
to
it?
work this out, but it is a dredging task force. We've been doing this particular dredging task force for 5
9
years.
Almost
5
3
years,
years.
and it's always gone through the dredging task force. And the harbor master is part of the dredging task force. So you guys can argue this. I see your points. I see everybody's points, but it's not going to help us moving forward. So
So how about my suggestion that Chris and I work with Will to schedule dates
yes,
and go from there?
yes.
And make them open in public meeting fashion and follow the ethics laws and continue.
Well,
Yeah.
they have never been in violation of the ethics laws. They, under the ethics laws and the open
Yeah.
meeting law, okay? Under those two laws, we are not required for committee meetings to blast them out to the public for anybody in the public to attend. My position is if anybody wants to attend, they can, okay?
They
But
can't
you're
if
gonna
they don't
quote
know
the
who they
law,
are.
excuse me, I'm talking. If you're going to quote the law, you should know what it says. As a
Actually,
committee
I did
chair,
not quote the law.
20 years, excuse me, I'm talking. As a committee chair for 20 years, I know the open meeting law. I know the ethics law. I've never had a violation filed against me. And please don't lecture me that the engineers' meetings are a violation. They certainly are not. And when I ask you for your position, that's not bullying. And I'll note, you didn't state your position.
I asked you to stop bullying me. And second, I
Okay,
did
so
not quote
let's,
any law.
okay, let's not keep going on and on with that.
Yeah.
So Joe,
Don't
there
make,
is,
excuse me, don't make accusations about the law unless you know the law and can back them up. That's unethical.
so the open
nobody
meeting
quoted
law
the
is being more enforced these days. And it is considered a meeting if two or more members of a committee meet. So if it's you, and those have to be, they do have to be advertised and anyone can join them. And nobody likes it, but they should be advertised and people can listen in.
And, John, and including discussions with the engineer?
Yeah, if there's two or
Yeah.
more of you, it's considered a meeting.
I
Okay,
thought it was 3, Janet.
Nope, two or more. You can't deliberate.
Well,
That's-
we don't deliberate. That's the key.
Well,
That- excuse me, that's the key word in the open meeting law. We do not deliberate, okay? We get factual information from the engineer. We ask factual questions and then bring that back to the committee. We're very careful not to deliberate and not to make decisions.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right. Well,
well, going forward, we'll
Yes,
we'll
going
schedule all
forward.
meetings through Will.
We'll schedule our, meetings- excuse me, we'll schedule our meetings with Will, the 3 of us can.
Yeah,
Announce them so that we're in agreement. Will is not going to schedule the meetings by himself for the dredging task force. That is in a violation of the charge. The charge in bold letters says the task force will manage. So what I'm suggesting is, and what Janet agreed to, and Kevin agreed to, was that Chris and Will and I get out the calendars and schedule that meeting together. The harbor master has no authority to control meetings of the dredging task force.
so let's move on.
We have a date for next meeting in 2 weeks.
I think that would be April the 12th for the dredging task force. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah,
7
that's
o'clock.
good.
Is that good for everyone?
Yeah,
Anyone opposed? We good? Okay, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I
make
make
a
a
motion to
motion.
adjourn,
Skip,
7:40.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting of Monday, March 29th, 2021 of the Wellfleet Dredging Task Force.
Second,
And a second, someone stepped on Kevin, maybe.
No, Joe seconded it.
Oh, Joe did,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll vote it. Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Chris, aye, 4-0. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Good work. Everybody works hard.